All right, so the next thing we're going to make is going to be granola. Now, I make this loose granola for yogurts, um, things like that, cereals, things like that. But I also like a thicker, the dogs are playing now, it figures, a thicker, crunchier, clustery granola to snack on. If I'm needing something sweet, if I'm watching TV after dinner and I have that sweet tooth craving, I always like to have that. That stuff is very expensive at the stores. There's one that I always get, and it's like $7 for not even a half pint of it. And so it's super expensive. I did, however, taste a granola that I absolutely fell in love with. It was an almond dark chocolate granola. And so I'm going to make kind of a variation of that today. I'm going to have some coconut in it. I'm going to have some almond paste, some pecans. And then if you ever tried these on your salads, these are fantastic. I only have a little bit left. So this has cranberries, cashews, pepitas, and what else does it have? Sunflower seeds and edamame. So I'm going to add this into it as well. I'm not sure. Well, maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. And then I've got some pecans. So let's get some granola made. All right, so I've got my old-fashioned rolled oats here. Now, I don't use your typical instant oats, the old-fashioned instant ones. Those don't hold your shape when you're baking them. And so I use rolled oats for these. This is going to call for 4 cups. I'm pretty sure there's 4 cups in here, probably a little more, maybe a little less, but we're going to use that. So we're going to put that in there. We're going to put a heaping chunk of coconut because I love coconut. Coconut and almond, I think, sound good. We're going to get some pecans, and we're just going to break those apart with our hands. You can chop them if you want. You can crush them with a pan. Whatever you want to do. I didn't have almonds. I would have loved to have used almonds, but I used them all for Christmas. And then chocolate chips we'll put last. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to melt our oil. If you're using coconut oil, you can use coconut oil. I'm just going to use avocado oil, anything that's non-flavored. And that's going to be if I can get this off, half a cup of either melted coconut oil or olive oil. I can't seem to get this off. Probably because I have to twist this. Well, that did it. All right, and we're going to use half a cup. All right, half a cup. And then you're going to do a half a cup of either maple syrup or honey. I'm actually going to use honey. All right. And if you use your olive oil or put your oil in first in your measuring cup, your maple syrup or your honey slips right out. All right, next is going to be a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then I am going to put in some almond paste. You can use almond extract, you can use vanilla extract, whichever you want. But I love almond. Actually, I think I have a bottle. I do. I do. And we're going to do a teaspoon of almond extract. All right, so you've got your oven that's preheated to 350. We're going to mix this up. This smells so good. And you really want to get it mixed in there because you want that olive oil and honey to coat all of it so it gets clustered together. I feel like I'm going to use more honey. And if you've ever made granola before, or if you are new to making granola, a couple key tips. When you are, depending on how you want it, if you want it granule and not in clusters, what you're going to want to do is while it's baking halfway through, is you're going to stir it and break those clumps up. If you want it clustery or in a bar shape, then, come on, then you're going to just compress it before you put it into your baking dish. There we go. And that'll make it more of a clustery bar type. And then when you're doing chocolate chips, if you've got kids and they love chocolate chips and you want to put those in there, you're going to put those in last after baking while it's still a little bit warmed, more cool than not. And you'll press those on top, and that prevents the chocolate from melting during the process. Now, if you like them ooey gooey and you want to add chocolate chips in there beforehand, definitely do that before you put it in the oven, and you'll get a really nice chocolatey granola bar. All right, let's see how this is looking. I think I'm going to put some more. I might as well just use the rest of this. I think I had more cups, more than 4 cups in that rolled oats. But it is what it is. I usually use like local honey, but it's winter and they're out. So I got stuck with this. Wildflower honey would be good in this. Orange blossom honey would be good in this if you're doing like an orange citrus granola. You can do freeze-dried fruit. You can do some freeze-dried strawberries. I'm going to put this in some hot water. All right. Just a minute, Rufus. I'll take you out. Just wait a minute. Wait a second, Rufus. Every time, Wolfie. All right, so we've got the rest of that honey out of here. I added a little bit more coconut, and I think we're going to add a splash, the last of my maple. It's looking pretty good. Nice and clumpy. And there's just a little bit of this left in here, so I might as well use it. All right. Okay. Using all the ingredients. And I think I am going to do semi-sweets mixed in. Let's make them a little gooey. Yummy. Okay. Now all we're going to do is we're going to put this in our lined baking sheet. And putting the parchment paper on the baking sheet just makes it easier to get it out of the pan. And then we're just going to smooth it and smash it down. You can do a larger baking dish if you want it. All right. One little hack. Perfect. And then you're going to put this in the oven at 350 just until golden brown. So 15, 20 minutes, maybe more, maybe less, depending on your oven. All right, so we are midway through. And to make it even crunchier, I'm going to do a press down on it. Yay. All right. So one of the things that I make only on special occasions and only when my oldest requests it, because my youngest doesn't eat bacon. But here in Denver, it's called $1 Million Bacon, and it's done by a chain restaurant that's here. And it is so good. It's very expensive, but it's so good. So occasionally I will make it, primarily again when my oldest is here and when she requests it, because again, my youngest does not eat bacon. She never has. She's never cared for it. I have to sneak pork in where, I can, because she just is slowly taking herself off of meat, which is fine. We all go through those phases. But if you put a steak in front of her, anyway, so what it's called here in Denver is $1 million bacon. And basically, all it is just bacon with maple syrup or honey and brown sugar. You can put cayenne pepper on it. You can put red pepper flakes on it. You can do it lots of different ways. So I've got a little bit of bacon here. My husband is on his way home from his morning errands, and so I am going to make some. He probably won't eat it, but I did want to get this recipe on here for my oldest, just so she has it. And it's very, very simple. So let's get Bucky bacon. That'd be a fun one too. Bucks bacon. Anyway, let's get this made. All right, so we've got our oven preheating at 400. I don't do a high heat on bacon. Well, I guess 400 would be considered high. I don't do a heavy heat, but I've got my bacon here. And basically what you're going to do is peel it, which I'm not doing a very good job of. Okay, so we're going to peel that bacon and get these laid out. This bottom part does not want to peel, so one thing I will tell you is if you have daughters, they do go through these phases of their eating. Social media and society really has put a lot of pressure on them, and so I try to not pressure my kids. They've always been really good eaters. My youngest literally would eat a tomato like an apple. And my middle daughter had always wanted to be a chef, but she's gone into a different avenue now. But they always go through different phases of eating. And so I feel like pressuring them into eating all their dinner, eating all their food is just really a waste of energy, causes a lot of animosity between you and your kids, and it just really isn't conducive to a healthy relationship, healthy communication. Believe me, I am not the type of parent that does your, let's have a timeout, let's rethink this. I was raised in the era of tough parenting and had always raised my kids that way, and it just really was causing a lot of strife. Um, aside from, you know, struggles with my first marriage and in that relationship, and unfortunately it coming out on my kids, and my oldest having to really kind of do the oldest daughter stuff that we all do. I was an oldest daughter where you have to step up and just kind of take care of everything, and it really just put a hindrance on our relationship. We're fantastic now. She, is really grown into a very responsible, very capable, very amazing young woman, and I am truly blessed for that. But it hasn't been a hard road. It has been a hard road, I won't lie. When she was about 14, it's kind of when it all started, and it really didn't end until probably about a year and a half ago. And it really took me back to where I really had to stop and listen and really take account of my actions, my lack of actions, and her feelings. And it really has, opened my eyes a lot to how I parent my youngest, how, we navigate having, her best friend living here, and who's been fantastic. But really just listening was a huge thing. And when you come from my generation and a little younger, you don't tend to listen. You tend to, this is the way it is, and that's it. And parenting girls is completely different than parenting boys. So I really took a step back and really kind of evaluated the way that I was, the anger that I had because of my first marriage, the hurt that I had because of my first marriage, and really tried to focus on the reason why I became a mom, the reason I had to pull away all of the garbage from life and really come back to the center and the core person of who I was and how much I wanted to have kids, and devoting myself to them. And my husband will tell you, you know, they are everything to me, as they should be. I chose to have them. They didn't choose to be here. I chose to have them. And so it took a lot of inner perspection. I don't know the word. Um, to really kind of say, okay, if that's what you want, then, let's figure out the alternative. So forcing your kids to eat just really doesn't do a whole lot, with dealing with Rory and her wanting to be a vegetarian, and going through it with Emily when she was younger. Really, I had to really kind of figure stuff out. Anyway, my long rant. But the next step for this is we're going to put down some brown sugar. And you're basically just going to sprinkle this on. And I just use either my fingers, a spoon, whatever it may be. And you just get some nice chunks on there. You don't want to candy it, but if you live in California and you are in Northern California, which is where I grew up, and you have a access to go to Santa Cruz, there is a place, it is a candy shop. I think it's called Marinos, something like that, in Santa Cruz. And they do chocolate covered bacon. Chocolate covered bacon. Yeah. So you're going to get this coated with some brown sugar. And then you're going to take your maple syrup, pure maple syrup or honey, whichever it may be, whatever you desire. And you're just going to drizzle a little bit on there. And you can put as little or as much. And basically all you're doing is cooking and candying this bacon. I do add a little bit of kosher salt on top. Even though the bacon is salty, I just feel like it adds just a little bit extra to that maple sugar. You're going to put this in the oven, however temperature that you like it. I like ours kind of on the crispy side, not burnt, but not super tender. And so I'm going to put that in the oven, and we're going to let this become gorgeous. All right, so the bacon is out. It looks pretty amazing. I will not save this bacon grease just because it's got sugar and maple syrup in it, but I'm going to let it cool for a few minutes and then we'll taste it. Okay, so our bacon is done and cooled. Yes, it is a little darker than I prefer. I unfortunately went outside to do another chore and left it a little longer, but here's your bacon. And at this point, when you take it out of the oven, while it's still kind of piping and bubbling, you can definitely put on some additional spices. If you want to put cardamom, if you want to put some cayenne, if you want to put paprika, whatever you want. Also, one thing you can do is make put some nuts on it to make something for like on top of a sundae or a salad, something like that. That would be good. But this is it. $1 million bacon. Super yummy. I hope you try it.